Welcome to episode 12 of The Short Game. We are continuing the Empire Week, and today we are talking about the biggest lie you were ever taught in business. They told you that competition is healthy. They told you that open markets are efficient. They lied. Competition is for losers. If you are fighting for scraps in a crowded market, trying to be 10% better or 5% cheaper than the guy next to you, you have already lost. Today, we are breaking down Peter Thiel's 0 to 1. We are going to talk about why you should never build a conventional business. You need to build a cult, and then you need to build a monopoly. We will spend some time unpacking the difference between going from 1 to N, which is just copying things that already exist, and going from 0 to 1, which is creating something entirely new. But as always, we are keeping the 60-40 split. Once we lay out Thiel's theory, we are connecting the dots directly to the trenches. Because at NexYear, we are not trying to build a slightly better gifting agency. I am 25 years old, and I am not interested in fighting over the middle of the market. We are building a 10x paradigm shift in B2B Access. We bypass the middleman entirely to land high-end, strategic assets directly on the desks of Fortune 500 CEOs. We are building infrastructure and logistical supply chains that simply cannot be replicated by traditional promotional companies. By the end of this episode, you are going to look at your own business and realize exactly where you are just competing and exactly what you need to do to build your own monopoly. Let's get into it. Listen to me very carefully. If you wake up every morning thinking about how to make your product 10% better than the guy down the street, you have already lost. You are playing a loser's game. You are fighting for scraps in an overcrowded arena, bleeding out your margins, and convincing yourself that the daily struggle means you are doing something right. It doesn't. It just means you are completely lacking in imagination. Welcome to episode 12 of The Short Game. We are in the middle of the Empire Week, and this week is all about scale, ruthlessness, and power. Today, we are talking about building a true monopoly. We are talking about escaping the pathetic trap of competition. The book focus today is 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, and the core angle is this. Do not build a conventional business. Build a cult, and then build a monopoly, because competition is exclusively for losers. Let us start with the fundamental premise of the book, which completely shatters the garbage they teach you in conventional business schools. When we think about the future, we naturally hope for progress. But progress takes two entirely different forms. The first form is horizontal progress. This is going from 1 to N. It means copying things that already work. It means taking one typewriter and building 100 more typewriters. Horizontal progress is easy to imagine because you already know exactly what it looks like. At the macro level, the single word for horizontal progress is globalization. Taking things that work somewhere and making them work everywhere. It is highly predictable, entirely safe, and completely devoid of any real innovation. The second form of progress is vertical progress. This is going from 0 to 1. Vertical progress means doing something entirely new. It means looking at a typewriter and building a word processor. The single word for vertical, 0 to 1, progress is technology. And doing new things is the only way you actually build a massive, untouchable empire. If you are copying exactly what the next Mark Zuckerberg or Larry Page did, you are not learning from them. Every moment in business happens only once. The next Bill Gates is not going to build an operating system. If you want to create lasting value, you have to go from 0 to 1. You have to create something singular. But here is where Thiel hits on the most important truth of modern business, a truth that true operators understand and mere spectators completely miss. Americans have been brainwashed into mythologizing competition. We are taught that competition is healthy, that it drives innovation, that it is the ultimate capitalist virtue. This is a complete and utter lie. Capitalism and competition are exact opposites. Capitalism is premised on the accumulation of capital, but under perfect competition, all profits get competed away. The lesson for serious founders is clear. If you want to create and capture lasting value, do not build an undifferentiated commodity business. Economists talk about perfect competition as the ideal state. In perfect competition, every firm is undifferentiated. They all sell the exact same homogeneous products. Because nobody has any real market power, they all have to sell at whatever price the market dictates. If there is money to be made, new firms rush into the market increase the supply, drive prices down to the floor, and completely wipe out the profits that attracted them in the first place. The competitive ecosystem pushes people toward ruthlessness or death. You end up squeezing every last drop of efficiency out of your business just to survive. You pay minimum wage. You cut corners. You obsess over rivals. Now look at the opposite. Look at a monopoly. A monopoly owns its market, so it can set its own prices. Monopolies can actually care about their workers, their products, and their long-term impact on the wider world, because they are not trapped in a daily, brute struggle for survival. United States airlines serve millions of passengers and create hundreds of billions of dollars of value every single year, but they make mere pennies on the dollar in profit because they are constantly competing on price. Google, on the other hand, creates massive value, but captures far more of it because it does not compete in search. It stands alone. It went from 0 to 1, distanced itself from the pack, and now it prints money. But people do not understand this because both monopolists and competitors are highly incentivized to bend the truth. Monopolists lie to protect themselves from government audits. They exaggerate the power of their non-existent competition. Google will frame its market as the union of several massive markets, so they look small and harmless. Non-monopolists tell the exact opposite lie. The people running highly competitive, undifferentiated commodity businesses are desperate to convince you they are unique. They define their market so narrowly that they dominate it by definition. If you lose sight of competitive reality and focus on trivial differentiating factors, your business will die. This obsession with competition fundamentally distorts our thinking. We treat business like war. We use war metaphors constantly. We talk about taking a captive market and making a killing. But rivalry just causes us to overemphasize old opportunities and slavishly copy what has worked in the past. If you are focused on your competitor, you are looking at the exact same things they are looking at. You are hallucinating opportunities where none exist. If you can recognize competition as a destructive force instead of a sign of value, you are already thinking clearer than 99% of the population. So how do you actually build this monopoly? You do not do it by disrupting existing industries. Disruption is a buzzword for spectators. If you see yourself as an insurgent battling dark forces, you are fixated on the old industries. You need to focus on creation. You build a monopoly by having proprietary technology that is at least 10 times better than its closest substitute. Anything less than an order of magnitude better is just a marginal, horizontal step that will be incredibly hard to sell. You invent something completely new, or you radically improve an existing solution so heavily that you escape competition entirely. And you do not start by trying to capture 1% of $1 billion market. That is a massive red flag. Any big market is a terrible choice for a startup because it is already swarming with competitors. You start small. Every monopoly dominates a large share of a very small market. You find a small group of particular people concentrated together who are served by absolutely zero competitors. You dominate that specific niche completely, and then you gradually expand into related markets. Amazon started with just books. They dominated people who read books, and then they scaled to CDs, videos, software, and eventually everything. They started by monopolizing one tiny sliver of the world. To do this, to go from 0 to 1, you cannot build a normal company culture. The extreme opposite of a normal, sterile, corporate environment is a cult. Startups need to be slightly less extreme kinds of cults. You need a tribe of like-minded people fiercely devoted to the company's mission. The biggest difference between a cult and a great startup is that cults are fanatically wrong about something important, but people at a successful startup are fanatically right about a secret that everyone else on the outside has missed. You are building a conspiracy to change the world. You demand total dedication. Now, let us connect the dots. Let us bring this out of the theoretical clouds and look at what we are actually building today at NexYear. Because if you think I am just reciting a book review, you are completely missing the point. Everything I just detailed about moving from 0 to 1, about escaping the meat grinder of competition, about building an untouchable monopoly, that is the exact playbook we are executing right now in the real world. Let me introduce you to our first core value at NexYear, the paradigm shift. We are not trying to be a 10% better gifting agency. That is horizontal progress. That is going from 1 to N. If I wanted to do that, I would buy cheaper promotional pens, slap a nice logo on a cooler, undercut my competitors by 5%, and fight for scraps in a totally saturated market. I hate that. We are not in the gifting business. We are creating a 10x paradigm shift in B2B Access. That is our proprietary advantage. What we provide is not a physical object. It is the absolute skeleton key to the boardroom. We recognized a fundamental secret that nobody else was looking at. The traditional cold outreach model is broken. Emails are ignored. LinkedIn messages are spam. Phone calls are blocked by gatekeepers. Everyone is competing in the same crowded digital channels, screaming at the top of their lungs. So we went from 0 to 1. We realized that highly strategic, fiercely tailored, incredibly high-end physical touchpoints bypass the digital noise entirely. We do not send swag. We send assets that demand immediate attention. We took a market that did not even realize it was a market, the market for guaranteed physical B2B access, and we are monopolizing it. That is what a 10 times improvement looks like in reality. This brings me to our second core value, building the moat. I am not interested in building a lifestyle business. I love freedom, and freedom means owning your time, but you only get true freedom when you build something robust. So at 25, I am building infrastructure and high-end logistical supply chains that simply cannot be replicated by traditional promotional companies. Remember what Thiel says about perfect competition. If your business is easy to replicate, new firms will enter the market, increase supply, and drive your margins down to zero. At NexYear, we are building a fortress. We are developing sourcing networks, proprietary fulfillment systems, and strategic partnerships with ultra-premium brands that literally will not talk to standard corporate gifting agencies. We are building logistical supply chains that are so complex and heavily guarded that a competitor looking at us from the outside would not even know where to begin. We control the process end to end. We do not rely on third-party vendors who do not care about our standards. We handle our business. When you build infrastructure that is this intense, you are not just selling a service, you are erecting a massive wall between you and the rest of the world. You make it physically and operationally impossible for lazy operators to even enter the arena. And that leads directly to our third core value, escaping competition entirely. I do not care what the traditional gifting agencies are doing. Fighting over scraps in a crowded market is a complete waste of time. When you compete, you lose sight of your actual goal. You get obsessed with your rivals, you start matching their discounts, and suddenly, you are exactly like them. NexYear bypasses the middleman entirely to land directly on the desks of Fortune 500 CEOs. We do not pitch to the mid-level marketing manager who is trying to save a few bucks on an event budget. We go straight to the top. We operate in a specific niche, high-ticket B2B enterprise sales teams who need to close multi-million-dollar deals. We are dominating that niche first. We are providing a solution so effective that our clients look at us not as a vendor, but as a critical extension of their own revenue team. Because we bypassed the traditional competitive landscape entirely, we do not have to compromise on our pricing, our vision, or our standards. We are alone at the top. So what is the move for you? What do you actually do tomorrow morning? You need to take a brutal, honest inventory of your business and your career. Are you an operator or a spectator? If you are an operator, you need to ask yourself the hardest question in business. What valuable company is nobody building? Where are you just competing horizontally? If your entire strategy is based on undercutting your competition, you need to pivot immediately. Stop looking at your rivals. Stop trying to improve on products that already exist. Identify a specific, hyper-targeted niche market that is completely ignored by the massive players. Dominate that niche. Build proprietary systems that no one else can touch. You do not need to fight a war of attrition. You need to build a monopoly. Handle your business, stop competing, and start creating. I will see you in the arena.